The times really are changing, aren't they? I mean, it's a strange time to be alive. Most of us have roofs and clean water, food, and bank accounts and refrigerators. Poverty is at an all-time low, but at the same time, we've got the pandemic, we've got climate change, we've got inequality, we've got challenges that we've never had before, and the rate of change just keeps increasing. It really is an extraordinary time to end global malnutrition, to end poverty, to welcome in billions of people to the global middle class. But somehow we're going to have to deal with the changing climate, with the water scarcity, with the increased demands for food, with species extinction, with all the challenges. And our institutions that made us successful are probably not up to the task because things are changing so unpredictably that there's so much confounding uncertainty, we really don't know what to do. It really is a time when the tasks of sustainable development exceed the capacities of our existing institutions, of markets, of governance, of nations even. So we need a new approach, new problem solving. We need leadership. We live in the Anthropocene. You're probably familiar with this depiction of deep time, where Earth began down here in the lower left 4 to 5 billion years ago, and then maybe a billion years or so after that, life started on Earth, and then maybe just 200 million years ago, a single cell, and up through time, and all the diversification that happened in the Cambrian, and now we're up here into the Jurassic period. This is just 200 million years ago. This is where Steven Spielberg took his cameras back to film Jurassic Park, and up here 5 million or so years ago, humans start to descend and evolve, but not until maybe 200,000 years ago or so, genetically identical people to us roam the earth. But it wasn't until this very recent time, the Holocene epoch of just maybe 10,000 years ago or so, that climate stabilized and conditions became favorable for human civilization. And we started to develop agriculture and urbanization and all the infrastructure that led to governance, democracy, capitalism, science, that built the civilization that we have today. And now those conditions are changing quite dramatically, and maybe our institutions won't be up to the task because of all the unpredictability and uncertainty. Let's look at some of those conditions. You can see, starting somewhere around 1950, just about every condition, environmental condition or socioeconomic condition, starts to change dramatically. All these curves, these are data, these are not predictions, these are data that are showing dramatic changes. First, look at it from a number of us, people, our population, how much energy we use, how much water we use, how much fertilizer we produce and use, how much carbon we emit into the atmosphere, and how much of that gets then absorbed in the ocean to acidify it, how much fish we capture from the ocean, how much forest we cut down in order to make fuel and places for farms. Just about every indicator showing rapid change, creating a new habitat for humanity, the Anthropocene, a time when if we break it, we own it. So we have to think differently about how we're going to manage our civilization and our habitat. Okay, things are changing fast. Let me pause for a minute and talk about what's driving those changes. There are 3 drivers I want you to think about. They're all very familiar to you. First is innovation, second is connectivity, and third is human development. Some of these certainly have been disrupted by the current pandemic. Let's take a quick dive into each. But innovation has been supercharged. The hardware are the doubling of the capacity of computer hardware every couple of years, Moore's law and all that. I mean, we are moving to the second half of the mythical chessboard, where the computing power is just going to increase dramatically over the next few years. It's really exciting. But of course, that's not the big development. The big development is software, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, the capacity of artificial intelligence to replace the operator, to replace us as we operate the machines. It's really a disruptive change, and we're not really sure what it's going to mean, but it's going to likely change the way markets function. And then even less well known, but even potentially more disruptive is the wetware, is the synthetic biology, the genetic engineering, the idea of being able to make biology and experimental science and create new forms of life that solve all kinds of problems. Just dramatic change on the horizon because of hardware, software, and wetware. The second big driver is connectivity. And it just, everything moves so quickly these days. Money moves around the world in a blink of an instant. Information, not just tweets and Facebook posts, but professionally relevant information relevant to you as a professional, as a learner who can learn how other people have solved problems in your same field from around the world, and that moves quickly through communities of practice. Supply chains, the clothes you're wearing, some of the material was probably grown as cotton, maybe in Arkansas, because the U.S. subsidizes that, and then it was shipped to China, where it was turned into fabric, and then moved to Vietnam, where labor is cheap to sew it, and then back to us by Amazon. It's an amazingly taut, rapid moving system. Utilities, the power lines, the water lines, the canals, everything that moves our utilities. There are now more of those sort of things that go through in countries and connect countries than there are borders in terms of just actual kilometers of these things. And of course, people migrate. Here's a great example of connectivity that's being promoted by the One Belt, One Road effort by China to connect what the old Silk Road and beyond. I mean, this is going to be a transformative system of moving goods and people and information that will rework the whole globe. And then finally, and most importantly, I think, is the human development, the increase in our health, in our wealth, in our education, and just the human capacity to solve problems. In just 2019 was a tipping point for when there were more wealthy people, more middle class and rich people than there were poor people. It's the first time in history, and that trend hopefully will continue. Likewise, we're living longer. So for the first time, there are more people over 30 than under 30. It's a dramatic change. It's also an indicator of that built up human capacity to solve problems. Now that, if we can look at how we, over the last 20, 30 years, every year has shown pretty much an increase until now with the COVID pandemic. So the COVID pandemic is taking a dent out of human development and likely also a dent out of connectivity. But the trend is improvement. The trend is more connectivity, more human development, more capacity to solve problems, right? More hardware, software, and wetware, just dramatically changing. You can feel the change, can't you? You can feel us moving forward faster and faster and faster. These drivers of change are creating new conditions that will potentially disrupt human civilization. Sometime over the next 50 years or so, all these forces are sort of coalescing to create what I call a bottleneck of risks. And if we collide into any one of these challenges, we're likely to disrupt human civilization. Urbanization, as an example, we're going to have to somehow double the amount of infrastructure, sewage treatment plants, roofs, buildings, roads, everything. A million people a week are being born or move into city. We're moving from 50% urban maybe to 70, 75% urban by 2050. We might have to double the amount of calories that people consume because there's going to be more people and we'll be more prosperous and we'll be eating further up the food chain. We're going to have to deal with biodiversity and species extinction. Somehow we're going to have to deal with water scarcity, where water tables are dropping meters a year around the world. We're going to have to bring more people onto the grid and give them energy access. There's a billion or more people that don't have flush toilets and light bulbs. Plus, more and more people want a real energy-intensive lifestyle. We have to do that without dramatically disrupting climate change. We're well on our way to 2 degrees, and most of the energy access is likely to come from carbon-based fuels. It's a huge challenge. Not to mention the linear economy, the take, make, waste economy, where we throw most stuff away after we harvest it and use it. We need to transform to a circular economy, which allows us to use those materials, those finite materials, over and over and over again. It's going to take a great deal of work to navigate through this, but if we do, we're likely to get to a wealthier, healthier, better place, right? That we can sustain development. It's an amazing opportunity, but an amazing challenge. Okay, I want to let you in on a little secret. You'll notice that one of the items that I moved away from the center of that bottleneck is the population bomb. The population bomb has fizzled. That's an obstacle that we've already overcome. And because of the demographic transition, because we're wealthier and healthier and better educated, the population rate of increase is declining. Let me show you. By every indication, we've reached peak child. That is, there'll never be more babies than there are now. This is due to the demographic transition. As we become healthier and wealthier, we make fewer babies. As we become more urban, we make fewer babies because babies are expensive to house and educate. We don't need them on the farm for labor. We don't need them to care for us in our retirement if we've got a good retirement system, a social security system. We don't need to make 20 babies because 10 of them may die because of childhood diseases. So better healthcare system, a social security net, a empowered, educated females that can take control of their bodies. This is the demographic transition. And so some projections have population maybe peaking out a little bit over 8 and then starting to drop back down again by 2100 because of the demographic transition. Some countries are still increasing population, but many countries are not, like Italy, Greece, US. The replacement rate is already below 2. It's already below the replacement rate. So we are well on our way to controlling population. Importantly, it's not population that's the problem. As a sustainability professionals, you don't have to tell people to stop making babies. Rather, the challenge is prosperity. That is, because we're becoming wealthier, that's the challenge. And that's a good challenge to have. Yes, we still need to have the good family planning, the good population efforts that are going on around the world. There's still plenty of role for that. That's good, important work. But the bigger challenge is dealing with prosperity. That's the challenge of sustainable development in the Anthropocene. So, welcome to the Anthropocene. A time of rapid and accelerating change, a time of extraordinary challenge, change, and opportunity, a time of confounding uncertainty and unpredictability. It's going to challenge our science, our technology, our rationality, and all of our other institutions. It's a time when we need a new type of leadership, a new type of practice, a new type of problem solving. And that's what most of this program is about.